So what are the hidden Mormon details and why do they matter? From the meaning behind Mr. Reed's massive Book of Mormon that he sits on the coffee table with the sisters, to Sister Paxton's kind of bizarre opening testimony, and how Mormon theology could actually be the very reason this film works. We're going to talk about all of this. Welcome to Copper Shock, where we are horror obsessed. My name is Tasha Wheelhouse, and today we're talking about 2024's Heretic. Heretic is a film about a gentleman named Mr. Reed who has asked the LDS Church to send missionaries to his home to teach him the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is actually a very common thing that you can do. The other two main characters that we have in this film are the two sister missionaries, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton. Things take a dark turn after inviting these two sisters into his home, where he then entices them to choose between two doors, belief and disbelief, after locking them in his home. And that's where stuff gets wild. After watching this movie, my husband and I took time to sit down with some dear friends of ours and their current active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I don't think you're going to find a more balanced conversation about this movie between two active members and two non-active members and what it means for both parties.
So I would recommend it, but I would have a gore warning.
Perfect.
Bring your scarves. That's my...
The cover your eyes.
Yep.
So me, I'm in Utah, which implies that I have some relationship to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have a wealth of knowledge of what it is like to be part of this culture and what it meant in watching this film about the pieces I picked up that were crazy significant. And I just don't think, unless you're like raised Mormon, you would know. So where does the name Mormon even come from? The long and the short of it is in the 1820s, there was a gentleman named Joseph Smith who, after contemplating the multiple different religions that existed in his local area, he determined he wasn't really spiritually connecting to any of them. So he decided to go privately pray in a forest. During that time, he was presented by angels who said, hey, over here is where some ancient biblical tablets are buried. I want you to dig them up and then spiritually translate this ancient text into modern day English for you to reveal to the people, because civilization is now ready for it. Mormon is actually, for lack of a better way of describing it, a character, a person described in this book that Joseph Smith translated from old tablets. You've got Old and New Testament, which Mormons still do read and study. You know how like in the Old Testament, you've got the book of Job or the book of Esther. This is the book of the guy Mormon, and it's got a collection of biblical stories. So back then, Christians would be like, oh, are these guys Christians? They'd be like, well, no, they're Mormon. It's a nickname that's been around for like almost 200 years at this point. It wasn't until the 2010s that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints sent out this big announcement of, we're not Mormons, stop calling us Mormons. Which I think is funny, because I don't know a single Mormon around me in Utah that would be offended if you called them Mormon, because it's just a nickname and we all understand that. Let's talk about some of the making of this film that I found out that were super crazy interesting. It doesn't surprise me that the visual language of this film is gorgeous, because the cinematographer for this film is Chung-hoon, and he's the guy who did Last Night in Soho. He wanted the first 15 minutes to almost feel boring on purpose before cross-cutting or bringing in odd angles. And it isn't until the sister starts to turn the candle around that his cinematic choices for how the camera's pointing at stuff began to even kick it up to 11. Brian and Scott have actually been friends for, gosh, I think they said since like 5th grade. When they were writing the script for A Quiet Place, one would write 5 pages and hand it to the other, and they would review it and write 5 pages more, and they would just build onto each other's storytelling. And one of the things that came out of A Quiet Place is they said, how do we make a horror modern day film, but almost like a silent movie? And that's where the genesis of that came from. So as they continued to work together in film, they wanted to write about Heretic. Neither of their background has anything to do with Mormonism. One of the films that really impacted them in their youth was a film called Contact. It's a sci-fi intellectual thinker starring Jodie Foster that has to do with this argument of intellectual design. Not necessarily God, not necessarily Buddhism, but that there is a fabric to the universe, even if we don't fully understand it yet, and that it does intersect with science. And they said that that film for them was very impactful, to think about this existential idea beyond what just Christian theology teaches them as children. So, I lit this earlier and I didn't want it for this shot. The blueberry candle is a major point of the film. When Mr. Reed first invites the sister missionaries into his home, they say, "I'm so sorry, we cannot come into your house unless your wife is present." At which point he said, "Oh yeah, my wife's just out back and she's cooking a blueberry pie." And in the meantime, the sisters are like, "Oh good." So they come in and they sit down, and Mr. Reed comes out with some water, a candle, and starts talking to the sister missionaries about their faith pretty heavily. And it isn't until after some major heavy-hitting questions, Mr. Reed leaves again. One of the sisters turns the candle around to read the label, and it says blueberry pie. And the entire lie of them being able to come into the home has suddenly been shattered, and they realize it. And he's left it there on purpose for them to discover. There's even a piece of dialogue in the film that laughing at Lou Gehrig's disease.
Can I ask, how did your father pass away? I'm sorry, I shouldn't mind.
Disease?
Blueberry disease.
Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh, that's awful.
That is based off of a real story that was told to one of the directors. They were visiting someone's home and sitting down for a family dinner. It was them and this other family at this table, and someone mentioned Lou Gehrig's disease, and the guy laughed because he thought they said blueberry disease, and the whole room went quiet. Oh, especially if you're a guest in someone else's home. But that is actually the origin of where that line came from. The entire cast for their wrap party gift was a blueberry scented candle. Hugh Grant even said when he was looking at the comments on the trailer for Heretic, his favorite one was, finally, someone who exposes the true horror of scented candles. The directors for this film really wanted to take their time with how people were interacting with each other on set. They had these long shots of just rolling the camera at Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East just sitting on the couch talking to try and get as much genuine reaction out of them as possible in an awkward silent situation. So the line where Chloe East says, "Mr. Reed," and it's really awkward, that was one of those moments where they just kept the camera rolling and she just said that out loud. Hugh Grant would play with this a lot. He loved having as little practiced amount of time on the script as possible before going into the scene because he felt you could get more genuine reactions out of people. One of the things he did was an improvised line that was incredible, and we're going to talk about what that line was later in this video. Why was Hugh Grant picked for this film? This felt like a very odd choice. Y'all know me, I love horror movies, but if I want to watch a rom-com, my go-tos are 10 Things I Hate About You and Music and Lyrics, which is a Hugh Grant rom-com with Drew Barrymore.
She seems like a very spiritual kid.
Yeah, it's nice to see a young woman exploring religion.
The two directors were handed a list of actors that were on contract with A24. Hugh Grant signed up with A24 Studio because he was so impressed with what he now has called his favorite horror film, Midsommar. So when the directors Scott and Brian were handed this list of actors, they saw Hugh Grant's name and at first thought, oh, I don't know. I mean, like, it'd be awesome to work with Hugh Grant, but I don't know if he's a fit. But then they kept coming back to his name. And as they thought about it more together as a team, they said, you know, most big world academics are British. Since this takes place in America somewhere, the two sister missionaries would hear his accent and socially give him a little more stretching room because, oh, clearly he's from a different culture.
I'm a weirdo. Okay.
Which was manipulative and clever. And more than that, it would be an interesting juxtaposition to see what Hugh, this big, well-known thespian actor, would do with this character. When Hugh Grant talks about this persona that he has created for this film, he has described this man as an insufferable, know-it-all and I'm gonna bleep that out because apparently that's a YouTube cuss. He said he wanted him to play like the guy who is so lonely that he overcompensates for being funny, but he's the exact kind of guy you don't want to get cornered with at a dinner party talking to you. When asked about whether he was curious of the Mormon faith at all, he said, well, I really wasn't even focused on that because my character wasn't. My character was so preoccupied with his one-track mind of his own thesis.
Each of us has to face the matter. Either the church is true.
The church is true, or it is a fraud. It is the church and kingdom of God, or it is nothing.
You agree with that? Would it help if I told you this is Gordon B. Hinckley, the 15th president of your church? You agree with Gordon?
Yes.
that what Hugh Grant did is he had this big mood board that he would have pictures of famous atheists or people who were cult leaders, people who used manipulation in order to exude their power. He said he also wrote down like a big character tome of the background of Mr. Reed. And I want to read that so bad, but he says he'll never like show it to anybody. The other thing that was crazy demanding about this film on Hugh Grant is it is basically 120 pages of monologue. He is carrying this entire film almost on his back alone, where he is on every page. And people speculate like this would make a fantastic stage play.
It makes me anxious when people say it's like a play, because if I was listening to your show, I think, I'm not going to see that then. I think it's very cinematic. It is true, there's a lot of dialogue. I give you that. Not at all like a play, so damn you.
Because the sets are simple, it's very dialogue driven, and there's a specific reason for that. The two directors had a very keen rule when they were doing this film. They said, what if we did a horror film that instead of jump scares, you would always replace a jump scare with a philosophical thought? And that's what they wanted to aim for in this discussion, was that push and pull of all theology and all religion in the world, including Mr. Reed's. So what is Mr. Reed's one true religion? This is something that he touts and teases at the very beginning of the film. I don't know if they meant to mirror it to a very common phrase in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The one true church is a phrase that I grew up hearing quite a bit. For this character to say, I am the one true religion, it's got some mirrored dichotomy in there that's really, really close. He believes the one true religion of the entire world and its entire history has to do with control.
This is where he's starting to exert some of that control, because if he gets to set the tempo, if he gets to set the tone, they can't.
And the thing is, Mr. Reed's idea of control is completely shattered by a very specific Mormon teaching that I grew up hearing all my life. And we're going to talk about that too. Now we're going to get into some of the little specifics that happen in this film that are very meaningful from a Mormon culture standpoint. The two actresses that play the sister missionaries, Chloe East and Sophie Thatcher, both have histories, like personal histories of being involved in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're not literal sisters. This is a colloquial term, like a title for missionaries who are female. I would be Sister Wheelhouse if I were serving a mission. What's also crazy interesting about the casting of these two people is that the directors had no idea that they had a background in being Mormon. Chloe East, when she was making this film, had friends that were out abroad serving LDS missions. She has family that is still active in the Mormon church. So when Chloe was on set, she would often correct the directors or someone of like, oh, you don't say that, or that's not quite how that works. I think absolutely shows in very small pieces of details in the film, or religion in Hollywood, because it's often used as like a scapegoat between a devilish person and someone who is religious who's holding up a cross. That's a very common trope of any horror film that has any relationship to religion. Mormons, they don't really wear a cross, but you do see Chloe wearing a CTR ring. CTR is an acronym for Choose the Right, which is also a song that she references in the film when she's trying to goad Sister Barnes to come through the Disbelief door with her. And you sing that song quite a bit. The funny thing was that she referenced it in Primary, which I thought it was a primary song too, but I'm wrong. It's actually a hymn from the 1800s. And one of the things that really caught my ear when listening to Chloe East interview is she was talking about her character of Sister Paxton. That this is a girl who grew up in Ogden, who has never had any kind of trial or tribulation or really anything that challenged her life, because she grew up in a pocket of people that all shared her values and belief system, which I can attest. I grew up in the same way. This is a picture of me with my friends. We're going to the LDS temple to like hang out on the temple grounds. And this is me also going with my friends to a retirement home, sing hymns to the elderly. No one asked us to do that. We just thought it sounded fun. When I was thinking about this character that Chloe had created, the cardigan that she wears, I have heard a lot of other people who are doing comments or reviews about this film mention Chloe East wearing a cardigan over like a normal shirt. And that's actually not uncommon for Mormons in their wardrobe. I found some old pictures of me and how many different cardigans or like bolero jackets that I would always wear. It's because for young girls who are part of the Mormon church, it's immodest to show your shoulders. In the early 2000s, like a spaghetti strap or a tank top was very fashionable, but I wanted the cuteness of the tank top, but the modesty of the sweater. Almost every girl I knew growing up had sweaters like what Sister Paxton is wearing. And then into adulthood, we just wear them because it's a comfort piece of clothing that we've just gotten used to all growing up. There is one piece of the story that I know confused people, and I think I understand why they did it. It wasn't enough of an excuse that they should have changed it. So you've got a red herring plotline thread of someone who recognizes the sisters are missing and are coming to look for them. They cast Topher Grace as an elder, but it doesn't fit. So remember how I said that there's like a term for girl missionaries called sister something? Well, it's the same thing for male missionaries, elder somebody. But elders are typically boys between the ages of 18 to 21.
I think that was like, to me, I was almost disappointed that they got that part of our culture wrong.
You know what's funny?
You went through so much trouble before, and now you just threw it all away.
And people have the context of what a missionary was, but if you now have to explain additional layers of LDS lore and understanding the social hierarchy in order to justify a single character coming.
And also, elders go in pairs in the same way that Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton were together. That doesn't work from a story metric standpoint, because you've got two characters who are executing a single line of thought. Where are the sisters? And when you do that in screenwriting, you need to consolidate the characters into one person. The reason that's important is because it kills pacing if you don't do it.
The Topher Grace thing?
I'm talking about Topher Grace as Elder Kennedy, and at least 10 people were like, yeah, it fits if it was this person and that person, but it's conditional. This age, and he was in the church at this point, and it's all these qualifiers. It allegedly makes sense to somebody approve this decision.
What they should have done is they should have changed this character into a bishop, especially because he was there cleaning the church. I was almost wishing they would have a shot of him in like the gym of the church stacking chairs, and they didn't do that. I think that would have been hysterical if they did. If you know, you know.
Am I better than everyone?
Now let's talk about this amazing, ostentatious, huge Book of Mormon that Mr. Reed takes out of his closet in the front room and sits on the coffee table in front of Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes.
His mysterious translation of those plates form the basis of this.
This is a massive, nice copy of the Book of Mormon. It was a custom-made Book of Mormon that their props master created specifically to be massive and chunky so that it would juxtapose the little tiny paperback versions that Mormon missionaries hand out to people on the daily. And it was meant to be this joke of boom, dropping this huge Book of Mormon on the coffee table to demonstrate the depth of study of circles he's about to run around these girls in his understanding of the Book of Mormon. When Mr. Reed opens up the book and he shows his pages, and it's got these clearly big, large written notes and references between verses, and how Sister Paxton freaks out and she's like, whoa, this is amazing. We should be learning from you.
No, you read more than we do. No, seriously, we should be more like you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed.
When I heard that line in theaters, I thought, well, that's like a weird overreaction. And then I realized I wasn't thinking about it from a Mormon perspective. It's highly encouraged in the church to not only have a Bible and study it, write everything down inside of it, make notes and connections, because that means that you're being divinely inspired of these pieces of spiritual things that are speaking to you on a whole other personal level. So when Sister Paxton looks at this book of all these infinite notes, instead of a Mr. Know-it-all kind of feeling that most people got from Mr. Reed, for Sister Paxton in particular, what she is perceiving is divine inspiration, page after page after page, for this man that she desperately wants to baptize to help bring him to salvation, because he's this close. Look at how many notes are in his own Book of Mormon. This is great. That's exactly what she's thinking.
And I saw a post on Instagram today that the devil will not come to you with fire and horns. He'll come dressed as everything you ever wanted.
Yeah.
And I thought about that in reference to this movie. He comes to them as everything they ever wanted. He's got a tabbed Book of Mormon that he's looked through. He knows
nice one.
Nice one too. That thing was at least $60. I used to work at Desert Book. I would know. So it's very nice. You can tell at least he's marked or made it appear that he's done research. This is not his first copy of the investigator pamphlet. You know, he's got several, and he looks like an investigator giving our Molly some traction. And she's excited.
He shows up as, like you said, what you want. He shows up as the golden investigator.
That's
as
the one.
what missionaries call them.
Yeah, the golden contact.
But here's the amazing part from Hugh Grant. When he was doing his improvisation pieces,
As I understand it, stop me when I go wrong, he was visited in the night by an angel called Moroni.
Moroni. Yeah.
There's a lot of words in the Mormon faith that are super easy to mispronounce. What's this? Nephi? It's Nephi. That one? Helaman. Laban? No, that's Laban. This is actually a town in Utah, and if you said hurricane, that ain't it. It's Hurricane, and I'm not even making that up. So when Hugh Grant is doing his improvisation pieces, one of the things that he did mispronounced the word Moroni. But here's the twisted part. Sister Barnes, I think, gives like a little bit of an eyebrow, and she should. Because while Sister Paxton is just enchanted by the fact that this man has all of these spiritually inspired notes written into his own version of a Book of Mormon, if you're that studied on the subject, you wouldn't mispronounce Moroni. See, Moroni was the son of Mormon. So to mess up that name in particular is a big deal. And I remember feeling my brain bite a bit of a lemon going, no, that's way off. But that was the brilliance of the manipulation that Hugh Grant was bringing to the scene. He said he purposefully did that so that the sister missionaries could help him, correct him, trust him, because they're helping this poor little old man. Out of every name that he could have picked to mispronounce, that was the one that was the biggest red flag, but I almost didn't catch it as a manipulation tactic until it was pointed out to me later. Brilliant. Brilliant. And because Mr. Reed is not fooling Sister Barnes, she is the one that eventually turns the candle around to reveal the biggest lie told to them that day. Y'all ready to talk about Sister Paxton's weird opening testimony to this film? The very first dialogue opening scene of this film is Sister Paxton talking to her companion in a private setting, sitting on a bench and talking about her experiences with corn and how that was her confirmation of Christ. Confused? Yes, everyone in the theater was. The more I thought about this opening dialogue of her talking about her experience of watching this woman and how she knows, like, oh, that's why it's special. I am laughing through this whole testimony that she's giving. This is so weird, but it's actually important to the entire plot of the film. When Sister Paxton is giving this testimony, she's bouncing her knees, she's shaking her head a little, and she's looking down at the ground. These are all very physical signs of telling a lie. She doesn't believe what she's saying. Her testimony isn't exactly fabricated, but what I'm guessing is that this is a girl who grew up in an unchallenged environment. This is also a place where she was probably heavily schmexually repressed. And I can't say the real word on YouTube. I wish I could. It puts weird power behind something, but I also don't want to be punished for it, so sorry. And when you are in an environment where you are so body shamed, I had my own personal experiences in the church. I just talked to somebody about this the other day. There was a lesson in my Young Women's, which is an hour during Sunday where you meet with other girls your age and have a teacher and you have a lesson. At 14 years old, me and like 6 or 7 other girls my age were sitting in this class, and our teacher got out a tissue and she handed me the tissue and she said, blow on the tissue. So I blew on it. Now pass it to your neighbor. As this tissue got passed down from person to person, someone would cough on it, someone would rub it on the windowsill for dirt, someone would stomp on it. And by the time it got to the last girl, the teacher said, okay, I want you to rub your face with that tissue. And the girl just looked at her of, no, I'm not doing that. And the teacher picked up the dirty tissue, held it up in front of the class and said, this is your chastity. The more that you allow people and men in your life to use your chastity who are not your eternal companion, the dirtier you become, the less it is clearly worth has been demonstrated to you today. And she threw away the tissue. That lesson stayed with me for a good long time until I learned to let it go. That is probably something that Sister Paxton grew up with. She was told if she dressed immodestly, it was her fault if a guy had a dirty thought about her. So when it comes to any sort of approach to her intimate side of her life, she probably had no spaces that were safe at home to even explore or discuss them. So maybe in a private setting, she got curious and she looked up some corn to see what the big deal was, felt a wave of guilt about it, went through the repentance process, and that was the single event in her life that affected her so mentally and emotionally that she decided to attach that to her testimony to say, yes, this is the big trial I've gone through in life, and this is why I believe in Christ. It's hollow, and she knows it. But why is this so meaningful? It demonstrates that she does not actually have a testimony of what she's based it off of. The last dialogue scene of the entire film is Sister Paxton stating to Mr. Reed while she's bleeding and dying out what her real faith is. She admits openly she's read studies where prayer doesn't work, but that doesn't matter because it makes her feel good. And she's not only going to pray for herself, but she will pray for Mr. Reed too. She is bearing her testimony without the pomp and circumstance of opening and closing the testimony or saying and ending it in the name of Christ. It's so much more powerful than that opening dialogue scene. And having the juxtaposition between the two means everything for this character's personal development. Chloe East played this girl brilliantly because there are so many nuances about this character that I align with. So what is it about Mormon theology that actually fractures Mr. Reed's theory of control? So this is how Mormons view the eternal cosmos. You have the pre-existence, then you have a veil, then you have earth, and then death. Then after death, you are sitting in either purgatory or paradise, are then sorted into different kingdoms of heaven. Now, the thing about this whole structure of this universe matters. The veil was meant to have us forget everything that happened before we got to Earth, that we would exist on Earth to have freedom of choice, which is a God tier level of power. And the reason Lucifer was cast out of heaven, as God is explaining this plan to all of us, is that Lucifer said, hey, Heavenly Father, instead of this whole veil thing and then testing people of whether they come back to heaven or not, why don't I just guide them through their earthly beings so that they can all just achieve the highest thing? And that was actually the thing that EO'd God enough to send him out to outer darkness. What does this have to do with Sister Paxton's ability to pray for herself and Mr. Reed at the end? And why does it break Mr. Reed's whole theory around control being the one true religion? Control was the thing that everyone gave Lucifer? Here I am talking about don't mispronounce stuff and I say things like Lucifer. The biggest criticism that God had of Lucifer before he cast him out of heaven was that he wanted to remove everyone's ability of the biggest gift God could give us: free will. It is the act of free will that fractures and breaks Mr. Reed's whole idea that he can control everybody. He can manipulate, but he can't control a single person. Sister Barnes breaks form and starts accusing him of cherry picking and using her own free will of thought to challenge him. There's a key scene in this film where the girls are presented with an old haggard woman with a blueberry pie, and even the priestess used her own free will to say to the girls, it's fake. Nothing you see is real. She uses her own choice to break away from Mr. Reed. When Mr. Reed has attempted to take her life by stabbing her in the stomach and watching her bleed out, she chooses to pray for herself and pray for him. Viktor Frankl wrote a book, A Man's Search for Meaning. This is a gentleman who was imprisoned in Nazi Germany. Even he noted that these are people who could take his food, his comfort, they could take everything from him, including his life. They could never take away his ability to choose how he reacts to it. And that is, interestingly, a core value of a Mormon theology. So from all of the amazing pieces of information and ways that this acts out, yes, this film actually makes no argument in either direction. It does not make an argument against religion, it doesn't make an argument for it, but rather it just challenges you. What do you want to choose? That is what makes this film so brilliant for me, and I highly encourage you to watch it. And while I've got a shorter clip version of the discussion that I had with my dear friends here talking about the film Heretic, I do have the full 2-hour discussion available on my Patreon today. Are you someone who enjoys original horror stories and insights into the craft? Well, we've launched a Patreon here at Copper Shock, where you can have early access to episodes, ad-free content, even a shout out on future videos here on the channel. And while we have 2 tiers at the moment of the constant listener tier, we also have the horror aficionado. This is a select group where they get to mold and shape the future of Copper Shock as we decide what subjects to discuss on this channel. We have a monthly short story contest where if you have a horror story, we submit it, select a winner, and I will narrate that story to post onto the Patreon for everybody to see. While we have the constant listeners at $5 and the horror aficionado at $15, we are doing an entry early bird tier called Founding Frighteners. There's a limited number of spots available, and it's got all of the benefits of the horror aficionados at $15 or $7. This is for the early bird adopters who are choosing to support the Copper Shock channel. I'm so excited to have you over there. What were things that you had noticed about the film Heretic? What are things that you're maybe excited to go look for and find out in the second watch through? Thank you so much for spending time with me today to talk about this film. I'll see you soon. Bye.